Hi, this is Michael Macchiarola, and I will be analyzing the first Avengers movie through the lens of gender. Throughout the 2012 Avengers movie, traditional gender roles and stereotypes significantly impact the action and background of its featured characters, as well as their dynamic with others. 6 characters that demonstrate the impact of gender roles and their portrayal and dialogue with other characters to the greatest extent include Black Widow, Captain America, Loki Laufeyson, Pepper Potts, and Phil Coulson. Starting with Black Widow embodied traditional gender stereotypes within the Avengers movie due to her past, her dynamics with other characters, and her subordinate to the other men in her role in the team and the undermining of her successes. Black Widow's past as a child assassin trained in the Red Room was one that she had no consent over, and she was essentially a slave for the Russian government. Though this background offers complexity to Black Widow's character and demonstrates her emotional resilience, she is the only Avenger that didn't have consent in her upbringing, unlike Captain America, who willingly became a trained soldier, and this lack of consent can be linked to her role as the only female Avenger. Black Widow is frequently shown to be a mediator and the connecting piece within the Avengers team. She recruits Hulk, she is the one to unbrainwash Barton, and she tries to reach a solution while the rest of the Avengers argue on the airship. While the other Avengers argue, Black Widow even goes as far to say, "You boys," distancing herself from the rest of the team due to her femininity, which her feminine role plays a significant part in her assumed duty as the mediator between the Avengers. Lastly, in Black Widow's combat and competency feats, she is frequently undermined by male characters. Black Widow has to wait for Iron Man's instructions before she can wield Loki's scepter to disable the Tesseract. She cannot fly the Avengers jet herself, and instead Hawkeye's designated co-pilot, and after brilliantly hijacking a Chitauri hovercraft, she needs help from the men to steady herself. It's almost like every time she demonstrates her skills, the writer feels the need to introduce a male character to assert dominance over her. Captain America leaned into traditional gender roles due to his hypermasculinity being linked to his almost automatic leadership role, his traditional values that embody masculine ideals, his conflict with male characters and protective nature over Black Widow, and his objectification to a lesser extent than Black Widow, but that is still intended for the male gaze. Captain America's superhuman physique and fearless mindset combined with his 1940s background present him as one of the most masculine Avengers on the team by far. His ability to get the other heroes to work under his leadership immediately after he takes on the role can be linked to his masculinity, which he uses as a tool to assert his dominance over the group. Any Avenger who challenges his masculinity, like Iron Man or Thor, he ends up getting in verbal or physical arguments with, such as when Iron Man and Cap argue about how they want to use the Tesseract as an energy source, or when Captain America faces off against Thor when he tries to kidnap Loki, believing he is better fit to lead him to justice, to which Captain America is able to persuade him otherwise, in part because his masculinity and strength rivals Thor. Captain America's toxic masculinity is also juxtaposed by his protective relationship over Black Widow, in which she's the only character not assigned a position by him in the New York battle, and instead she stays fighting by his side and he covers her with his shield when an alien ship crashes down on them, leaving the other men to fend for themselves. Lastly, it is undeniable that Captain America is objectified to an extent, with his form-fitting costume, the punching bag scene where he demonstrates his physique, and many shots in the movie featuring his back profile hinting at this. Captain America maintains his masculinity, however, in the way he's objectified, and I would argue that his objectification is intended for the male gaze, to show how strong and objectively attractive he is, and gain the respect of male viewers for it. Loki's portrayal in terms of gender is very interesting, as he has masculine, feminine, and androgynous qualities. Despite being played by a male actor, because of Loki's not traditionally masculine appearance, including his longer hair, slimmer body, and shape-shifting abilities, it directly contrasts with the Avengers team in which all of their characters' appearances conform with their traditionally masculine or feminine appearance. It is very interesting that Loki, being the villain, is the only character that does not follow traditional masculinity standards. Loki's portrayal also aligns with the gender-fluid identity in the comics. However, Loki's mindset on power and his ego/superiority complex can be linked to traditional gender roles in which men are better suited towards handling power, and therefore his superiority complex can easily be argued to be a traditionally masculine quality. Loki's golden horns that he wears are also very masculine presenting, and are used throughout the movie to demonstrate his masculinity whenever he is succeeding in his efforts, and anytime he is losing, he loses his horns, thus shedding himself of his masculinity, such as when he loses his horns at the end of the Avengers movie when his plans fail, and when he is captured by the Quinjet. Loki's golden horns act to portray that he is more masculine when he is succeeding in his efforts to conquer the Earth. Pepper Potts. Though Pepper Potts' appearance in the Avengers movie is brief, she mostly conforms to traditional gender roles during her scenes. Pepper Potts' outfit appeals to the male gaze, including Tony Stark's gaze, when she wears a low-button shirt and short-length jean shorts, and When discussing her efforts in building Stark Tower with Tony, which was named after Tony Stark even though they both worked to build it, she only lets herself take credit for her work after Tony gives her permission. Her arguably submissive dynamic and her relationship with Tony conforms with traditional gender roles and goes even further when Tony calls her over with his finger later on in the movie, and she says nothing when he scolds her for being friendly to Phil Coulson. Lastly, like Black Widow, Pepper Potts assumed the role of mediating the conversation between two men, Tony Stark and Phil Coulson, compensating for Tony Stark's eccentrically sarcastic ego and mannerisms. However, Pepper Potts breaks traditional gender stereotypes, especially the stereotype for a Marvel character love interest, as she is shown to be a successful businesswoman and wealthy community leader outside of her work with Tony, which is very different from her role in previous movies as his secretary. Our final character, Phil Coulson, is the only male character in the Avengers movie that does not demonstrate toxic masculinity at some point. He is kind instead of assertively egotistical when engaging in conversation, and he is instead professional when he handles Iron Man's toxic masculinity. He's a team leader and shows his respect for Nick Fury, and he treats Black Widow the same way he does the other male characters, which unfortunately the other male characters cannot say the same. The only character Phil Coulson does react differently to is Captain America, in which Phil demonstrates his secureness in his own masculinity to be able to express his respect and idolization of Captain America, in which he admires him not just because of his masculinity, but because of his impact and bravery in World War II. Thank you so much for listening to my analysis of gender roles in the Avengers movie through Black Widow, Captain America, Loki, Pepper Potts, and Phil Coulson, and here is my works cited.